Hello, people. This is Mac. It's Mac Commentary. Today, I have my frequent guest with me, Bob. How are you doing this afternoon, Bob?
I'm doing just fine, Mac. Thank you for asking. And how are you doing?
I'm doing fair to middling, as they used to say, But
Sure.
but I'm really doing great. I really enjoyed the life and to the fullest extent, and stay pretty busy, Bob. I tell you that much. But
Well, that's good.
but I have a young one that sort of keeps me busy. Bob, a lot of things have been happening today. Where I heard we had an announcement that China's military declared today that it is ready to fight after completing 3 days of large-scale combat exercises around Taiwan that simulated sealing off the island in response to the Taiwanese president's trip to the U.S. last week. The Combat Readiness Patrol, named Joint Sword, was meant as a warning to self-governing Taiwan, which China claims as its own. China's military said earlier the theater's troops are ready to fight at all times and can fight at any time to resolutely smash any form of Taiwan independence and foreign interference attempts, it said Monday. That's some pretty strong words there, Bob, that they are ready to squash any type of interference from foreign instigators. And I guess they mean the U.S. And they tell me that those exercises were similar to ones conducted by China last August when it launched missile strikes on targets in the seas around Taiwan in retaliation for then Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, but have been smaller and less disruptive. And the military experts said the exercises serve both as intimidation and as an opportunity for Chinese troops to practice sealing off Taiwan by blocking sea and air traffic, an important strategic option the Chinese military might pursue in the event it uses military force to take Taiwan. So that is we can see here, if we look on this map here, Bob, we can see Taiwan right here. And what they want to do is put all their ships and everything and blockade anybody coming into Taiwan right there. So what do you think, Bob? You think this is a dynamic war words there that to instigate and get this thing going? I think we're already in a war. World War III already with Ukraine. And now China is saying that they're ready.
Yeah. Well, Mac, I think that I think it's not a question of if Taiwan will be reconnected formally, because it has never been disconnected from China. It has always been a part of China, going all the way back to the Civil War back in the 40s. But it's not a question of if, but when. And I think that with this declaration today by the Chinese Communist Party, People Liberation Army making it known to the world that they're ready to fight. I think they are ready to fight. This is not a bluff. I think that they're saying, look, you guys can play tiddlywinks and invite so-called leaders of Taiwan over to your country and sit around and sip tea and crumpets, but when the deal goes down, this is what it's going to look like. And I understand that those exercises that you described was live fire, live ammunition. So they're not shooting blanks. And I guess the countries that China is messaging know that. So I think that we're getting real close to a heated exercise where there might be some casualties as a result, and it might even escalate. So I think the next several months, I'd say the next 6 months, are going to be a critical period in the whether or not we see a full blown war between China and the United States and its allies, and China and Russia and China's allies, because China's got allies as well. They're not as promotional about who their allies are as the West is about who theirs are.
But
So,
along those lines, there, Bob, I don't think that a lot of people jump in the ship when it comes to getting on the bandwagon with the U.S. Like, for instance, Macron of France. He said that he's distancing himself away from the United States and what they are doing with China.
oh, uh huh,
And
yeah,
you'll find in Japan as well. Japan has been trading with China here lately, just recently.
yeah,
So I don't know whether Japan is all on board to fight with China either.
sure,
The only country so far, I mean, I'm not saying anything about the other smaller countries around there. India is not on board with that, even though they have some problems with China as well with the border there up around Nepal, I believe.
yes,
But I don't think they're joining uh, just as they didn't get with the United States with the Ukraine invasion.
yes, sure,
So I wouldn't be so I wouldn't jump to too many conclusions as far as the United States having all of these airlines. And none of that, and most of the African countries, they're not siding with the U.S. I'll say 70 to 80% are staying out of it. They said they are using that phrase. My name is Benny, and I ain't in it.
uh, well, but I'll tell you this. I really think that China is not bluffing. I mean, for them to come out with such a definitive statement, they are ready to fight. Uh, that that's a declaration of war, as you said. That we we might already be. We're already in a verbal war.
Well,
Whether it becomes a heated war, I think, like I say, it'll be probably in the summer. It wouldn't be something if they on July the 4th, when America's celebrating Independence Day, China lobs a missile over here into this country. like they did with that weather balloon.
And
Uh,
everybody
you know,
think those are fireworks, right?
right. Yeah. I mean, our people are, and you know something, it occurs to me that most of us are asleep at the switch. Most Americans don't even realize uh, what's going on. I don't think that. I think if you walk down the street and stopped uh, 10 people that you came in contact with and asked them, "Are we about to go to war with China?" they would probably think that you've lost your mind.
Yeah, I mean the thing it is, if they follow, I mean a lot of these people, they only follow one or the other, either CNN or Fox. So, and if they listen to anything, and I think if they're listening to CNN, they're going to find most things there sugar coated. So, I don't know whether they really getting the word that something is big coming out, because one of the things is that the president of Taiwan had a mission over here where he was attempting to shore up Taiwan's dwindling diplomatic alliances in Central America and boost its United States support. And he capped that trip with a sensitive meeting with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in California. And a U.S. congressional delegation also met with Zay over the weekend in Taiwan after she returned. Now, China had tried to tell the president of Taiwan, Zay, not to come over, and she tried to tell the U.S. Speaker of the House, McCarthy, not to meet with her because they are claiming that Taiwan has always been a part of China. I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons, but it'll take a historical lesson to get into all of that. And I guess the real reason, and that's why China responded to that meeting that she had with the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, by imposing a travel ban and financial sanctions against those associated with the president's U.S. trip, president of Taiwan trip, and with increased military activity through the weekend, with those blockade exercises and etc.
Yes.
And the real question comes down to this, Bob. Why is it worthwhile for Americans to defend Taiwan? What's in it for us?
I don't think it. I don't think there's much in it at all. Uh, it's I think it's a question of America trying to exercise its role as the policeman of the world, and 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 we America think that we could do whatever we want to do wherever we want to do it on the globe, and nobody can tell us anything. Well, that picture is changing, and that's what China is trying to show the world. Look, we're as capable. We've been going in our Belt and Road program. We're helping countries in Africa. We're helping countries all over the world get themselves on their feet without exploiting them like America has been doing for so many years with the oil primarily and with other minerals, diamonds and gold, etc. And there's a new kid on the block, and it's us, China. So don't be running to them just because you figure we're not competent. Because we are competent. We're capable. We have the resources, and we're ready to help. Just as they said they were ready to help, but theirs was more of an exploitive type of help, whereas ours is going to be more mutually beneficial. We'll help you as you help us. You live up to your end of the bargain. We'll live up to our end. We won't give you 10 cents on the dollar. It's going to be a 50 cent split. It won't be 10 cents on the dollar like it has been for so many decades, tens of years between the United States and many of its so-called nations that it was helping.
Well, do you think there's a widespread agreement among Americans that China is a major threat and that U.S. policy needs to be addressing it?
No, I don't, Mac. I don't think that China is a threat to America. Uh,
Well, I'm talking about, do you think the people think it is?
oh, whether the American people. I don't think that most of us here in America uh, believe that. Uh, we haven't had that kind of hostile relationship with the Chinese here in America in my lifetime. I the 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 favorable attitude that I have towards China, and I know this may sound trite, but it's not meant that way. I mean, it's meant. I've always enjoyed eating at Chinese restaurants. When you meet Chinese people on the street, they're very cordial. Now I don't know if they're Americans that have been Americanized by from China, but no, I don't think that there's a hostility uh, among the American people against China, and that's why I think that the people are going to be surprised uh, if, or I take that back, when this squabble as it is right now becomes a firing war. It's going to surprise a lot of Americans.
Right. Well, well, the America economy is somewhere roughly 20% of the global GDP, you know,
Yes.
and economic productivity is the root of power in the modern world, as well as the military. So this means that only a very great state could hope to become so strong as to menace us, right?
Right.
And the only state today that matches up to that description is China. And I think that's where the real problem comes at.
Right.
But then some say that China is not strong enough, though, Bob. They said even though it's roughly 20% of its economy is roughly 20% of global GDP. So how could China pose such a threat to our interests? Would that be by dominating Asia? Because
Well,
is not
yeah.
Asia is now again the center of the world. What was a 50% of global GDP going forward? If Beijing could dominate Asia, it could be in a very strong position to dominate the world and us. I think that's what was. I think that's what the card is sort of flipping right now, Bob, so to speak.
Yes.
The apple cart is getting upset, so it's about to tip over. So hey, We got to righten things up. That's the way I believe our politicians believe right now in the uh, into the great white hope. You know,
Yeah.
it's a battle right now for ideals, for
You
economics.
just said something that strikes a note. Right now, uh, and I don't want to put things on a racial basis, but you just said that, and it occurs to me that the world has looked at itself. Other nations have looked at the world as being uh, controlled and dominated by Caucasoids, by whites, for the most part. I mean, if I look back over my lifetime, I've pretty much, and it's a very subtle uh, realization that the world is controlled by whites, and if China were to assume that dominant position that the United States and the Western world has had all of my lifetime and forevermore, as I can see it, uh, that impression, that very subconscious impression, would be dominated by Mongoloid or yellow people, people of color. And the point that you just made just struck a nerve with me in that regard.
Oh yeah, for sure, Bob. I think that's the whole problem right there with the whole. I mean, you got to go back. I mean, you go back in history. We only talk about a very short period of time. When we talk about 2,000 or even 3,000 years, of civilization, which we know it goes back way further than that.
Yes,
But just thinking about it right now, in the last, I'll say 500 years for sure, it has been somewhat dominated by the Caucasoids. I mean, that's
yes,
just a fact.
that's right.
I mean, there ain't no way of you getting around that. But but things are beginning, like you see things are happening over in Africa where people are saying, "Hey, we don't have to do what you say." They did for a long time, because
That's right.
because they had corrupted the people over there. They had divided up that continent over there, just as they once ruled India and China. I mean, just think back 40 years ago, China was in the same situation as Africa, the continent of Africa is.
Yes,
I mean, really. And the Africans are beginning to see that. And that's why they've gravitated to China, is because they say, hey, here's somebody we can look up to. We can emulate.
right.
We can follow their model. How did they get there? We know what
That's
they
right.
did. So that's what we've got to do. What can these other countries teach us? Nothing. They just come in, extrapolate
That's
our
right.
resources, and then they go and leave nothing.
That's right. And that you know that is so uh it's very subtle, but it is so prominent that as long as the Caucasoid has ruled the planet, it's been ruled with an air of condescension. I'm better than you
Exactly.
because I'm a Caucasoid and you're a Negroid or a Mongoloid. Now, the Chinese do not seem to rule that way. I mean, as I say, as I look back over my life and my interaction with the Chinese people here in America, it's always uh, been a more of an equal footing type of a relationship. On the other hand, my relationship with so-called Americans, Caucasoid Americans, has always been a subservient, and they let you know that you're not as good as me, and don't you forget that. And that's even to this very moment, as we speak, that they they place themselves on a pedestal or on a rung on the ladder higher than me, and they want you to know that they're higher than you or higher than me. Uh, and most of us don't don't get the subtlety of that relationship, because they smile at us, rub our head, pat us on the ass, and doing a good job, Bob. Keep it up, buddy. You know, uh, it's a very subtle understanding in my from my perspective back.
Yeah, and I think everything that the more you try to do some research and learn about China and America relationship, or, or just try to go back and do a historical analysis of Taiwan and China, and you're going to find all the history is skewed towards the that China, Taiwan was never owned by China. You know, they want to make it say it was they had some Aboriginal people there or something. You know,
Right.
at Taiwan at some point in time, and they want to show that the Dutch people went over there and they first occupied the place over there. But and then you talk about how Taiwan broke off from the mainland China centuries ago. You know,
Sure.
thousands of years ago. But they don't want to. They don't want to want you to understand exactly what is how the Taiwanese people are really Chinese people. They all look alike. You know what I mean? Pretty much.
Right.
And they speak Mandarin, and that's what they speak in China, Mandarin and Cantonese. You know.
Yes. Sure.
So how can you say that they're not Chinese, you know, or they're not part, that the Republic of China does not rule over them. They they may not have at one time. I mean, you can go back and look at the history of that, but our discussion here right now is not that. Maybe we'll do another story, video on that, on the history of that. But you'll see that they want to make it seem like the United States has the right to be over there protecting them, you know?
Right.
When we know the real reason over there is what you've already discussed, and it's economics.
Yes.
Because first of all, China, Taiwan is the microchips of the world, uh, headquarters, so to speak. They make the chips right there. That's the center of the world for microchips, Taiwan. And as long as the United States can exert some control over that, they can control those chips. If China take, they fear that if China takes control of Taiwan, they control. Let's go back to that same rationale they used when they went over and to Iraq and went over there and took over the oil fields over there. And the same thing that they were doing over there years before, those particular countries like Saudi Arabia or Libya and other countries over there nationalized their oil fields, you see?
That's
So
right.
so what they so the United States became buddy with them over there. And then it came push to shove, they went over there and just just ran right over Saddam Hussein in Iraq and killed during that process from the time the first Bush went in there until the end. I guess over 1 million Iraqis. I'm talking about civilians. Bob was killed. They,
Yes, sure.
during the time when in the 90s they killed so many Iraqis because they had sanctions on the country, and the people could not get medicine over there to cure certain diseases and things. They couldn't
Wow.
get they couldn't what do you get when you cholera when you have drink the bad water, so they couldn't sterilize the water because they couldn't get the necessary equipment and chemicals over there. So I mean, this is happening. This is the same thing they want to protect. They don't want China to be in control of all the chips, and maybe that's a good thing to keep our economy going. I don't know, but is it worth fighting for and losing thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of lives over?
Yeah,
That's the question that has to be answered, Bob.
that's right. Well, and I think the answer to that question is if you look uh, at the wars that we've been engaged in over the years, going all the way back to the Civil War, uh, we will opt on the side of war and not peace. We will sacrifice humans for the almighty greenback, and we've done it before, and I think we'll continue to do that.
Well,
Uh, and it's a tragedy, but that's reality for us as a country. I mean, and it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, as a Christian nation, so called, if you read scripture, the only thing Jesus said, well, not the only thing, but one of the main uh, uh, statements that he made was to love each other. And how can, and there's enough resources on this planet, we haven't even begun to exploit this globe. But we, our so-called leaders, have never been able to love each other and get its people to love each other, so that we work together for the benefit of each one of us. And that's why I don't think that once this little brouhaha that's beginning to simmer right now, but I think it's going to boil over, will end up in a war and not in peace.
well, Bob, I think it's going to be if there is a war in itself in that context. I don't see how it can be like a Ukraine-Russia war.
Right,
I don't think it can be held to that level because first of all, China's not going to allow anybody to fight on its territory, you know.
right,
And the United States don't want anybody fighting on its territory, and they're going to try to go over there and fight on Taiwan's territory. And I think that's when if they did that, that island would be annihilated.
right. Yeah, I think
So
you're right.
So I mean, the question? Another question comes to mind is this war uh, the no matter how much we might admire democracy and entrepreneurial spirit, is all of this enough to justify America's going to war with China? I mean, because as I stated, it will not be a Ukraine-Russian war.
Right,
Somebody gonna push a button there. Somebody gonna get heavy-handed there and say, "Hey, send that missile over there." And then both countries can be in total chaos with nuclear weapons, Bob.
Absolutely.
And what will happen then? This whole that it'll be the war to end the civilization.
Well, I don't think it would go that far, but I think you're right. I think there will be millions of people on both sides I think it will. I think it will.
Bob, you don't do you well you're a chemist, so you understand that when that radioactive goes off and it's circling this globe and landing, and how long what's the lifespan of that what they call it isotopes or whatever
Yeah, the
carbon.
carbon 2,000 years. So you're right. I mean, there are people that are dying in Japan as a consequence of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You're absolutely right. And I have to give that serious thought. You if you put it in that context, it could very well be the demise of civilization over the long haul. You're right, because that radiation would cover the earth, and people would be dying for many decades, many hundreds of years to come.
And how can they, you like to do a little gardening with you and grow your organic foods. I mean, how would that
Yeah,
be possible with contaminated soil?
that's right. That's exactly right. You'd have contaminated food. People would be walking around contaminated. If I have, it would be like COVID. If I have radioactivity in my system and I come in contact with you, those isotopes, and you can't see it, uh, it could enter your system and cause all kinds of cancers and destructive physiology that you don't even know you have.
And
So you're right. I mean, it's it. When I start thinking about the ramifications of what we're talking about, it could very well be, as you point out, the demise of civilization.
oh yeah, I think we're on the verge of that, Bob. If this here thing continues, somebody has to come to some senses here, like this guy, Lindsey Graham talks about. We got to have some type of proclamation or something to go to war or something against China. I mean, are these guys, you know what? They're old farts, Bob, and they see their lives soon to expire, so they want to take everybody with them. That's,
Yeah,
I mean, that's how I look at it, Bob. I mean,
yeah,
if Joe Biden go there, he said, "Well, well, I'm about to go anyway, so let me just go on and shoot this nuclear weapon over there. Let's do it." You know.
yeah.
And
Sure.
some people don't. They got their caves and their bunkers and stuff so well insulated, but they got to come out one day, Bob.
That's right.
And when they come out, what will there be?
That's right. And it only takes seconds for them to become contaminated.
Right.
You know. Oh yeah, and uh, it's something to think about. What we're discussing, and that's why I say most people don't sit down and look at the situation that we're in. I think as seriously as you and I are looking at it. This is a this it's a very life ending proposition when you really sit down and give it some thought as to what could happen as a consequence of a nuclear war.
Right. And that's why you see right now some of those European countries backing off of supporting the U.S. on this. They the same as they beginning to back off supporting them against Russia, and they figure they've done enough over there, and they see what has happened to them. The economy went into a free fall. The gas and everything went skyrocket, and they were not getting the grains and wheat from Russia that they were getting and Ukraine that they were getting before, and just everything just went chaotic over there. Some of them still don't want to admit it, but Macron, the president of France, he's beginning to see that, and I think
Yeah,
the German guy, they beginning to see that. Hey, we no matter how many tanks and stuff we send over there to Russia, they're gonna just destroy them. Russia got
yeah.
a special weapon over there that goes after all these modern tanks, Bob.
Oh, wow.
And they got teams that they got training working with these things and bringing them up to date. So as more and more they send all these particular uh, tanks, whether it's the Abram tank or the whatever tank or the Leopard tank of Germany or whatever, they're set to destroy all of them.
Wow.
So I'm just saying that these European countries are going to quit supporting U.S. on this here. And I mean, they act like it's a lot of fun and games when you listen to that Lindsey Graham and listen to our other politicians that we have when they talk about this. Like this is just another thing in a day's work, so the thing is, it can really be detrimental to the population of the United States because those missiles that they have now, Bob, they don't just go 100 miles; they can travel for thousands of miles,
Right.
and they probably already got just like we have our missiles trained on the capitals of those countries. They have theirs trained on the capitals in our country, where
Yes.
big populated areas.
Surely.
So so it's best to try to get up into you a mountain somewhere, Bob, and find you a nice cave, or just what you say, kiss everything goodbye, right?
Right. Right.
But look, we
Well,
make we make it light of this here, but there's Mac, Shakespeare says there's humor in tragic.
that's right. You have to laugh to keep from crying.
Oh yeah. Well, Bob, I hope that the people out there really take us serious on this here, and they will listen to us and share this video and subscribe to it because I enjoy talking about these things that perhaps they too can write to their congressmen, their senators, and tell them that we must stop supporting Ukraine. You must stop agitating for war against China. And we must start doing more for our own country here, our own infrastructure, creating more jobs here through bringing manufacturing jobs back from China, back to this country. Because this country is being ran by the oligarchs. That's what I'm beginning to think, the way I see things that's happening. Everything is
Yes.
all about the almighty dollar, Bob.
Yes. Sure.
And it shouldn't be like that. I mean, it takes you. I used to hear you say all the time that money is nothing but a tool. Perhaps you'd like to explain that to our audience, Bob.
Well, the only time you uh needed is it's like a shovel. You know, when you want to dig a hole, you need a shovel or some kind of implement like that. And money's a tool like a shovel. You only need it when you go out to uh, get something material where there needs to be a medium of exchange, and the almighty greenback is that medium all over the world. But it's losing its strength. It's like a shovel whose handle has been broken. Instead of having a 5 or 6 foot handle on it, it's now down. You're down to the scooping part of the shovel, and the job's a lot harder.
Oh yeah, there's nothing like trying to dig the weeds from around your plants with a half a hole.
That's right.
Well, Bob, well, I want to thank you again for this dialogue today about this possible war that China is ready to fight and the U.S. is gearing up for, at least the warmongers in this country. And I pray to our Almighty that they will come to their senses and try to do things diplomatic rather than going out and using weapons and human lives to achieve whatever purpose they are trying to achieve, which can be achieved, I believe, through diplomacy. If they hire more diplomats rather than spending more on weapons, if they spent more on education instead of spending more on weapons, if they spent more on training and housing than they spending on weapons, and they spend more on incentives for employers to hire people than they spend on weapons, we'll be all for the better in these United States.
I agree with that sentiment, Mac. Thank you.
All right, have a great evening, Bob. And people, don't forget to subscribe and share and like, and make sure you put your comments in on what we discussed today. And let us hear your opinion on this war that seems to be out there in the atmosphere. Appreciate it and have a great evening.